So this is Proverbs 11 verse 12. He who belittles another lacks good sense, whereas a person of discernment stays silent. Now we're living in an era, and I notice this a lot, especially in like the Christianity, which I find very, very upsetting, to be fair, where people are quick to judge. And this has always been a debate, like, oh, you shouldn't judge, but then we should judge because Jesus judged them, and all sort of things. But people are forgetting, actually, we're supposed to use wisdom in it. There's a time and there's a place for everything. Sometimes it is not the time to go rattling on to somebody or pointing something out to somebody. I mean, you've probably all experienced it if you've worked where you've been in a workplace and things have happened and you've used your senses to think, okay, is it something I should speak about, or is there any point of speaking about whatever the situation is? Because you can't always just run guns blazing at somebody, because you could make the situation 10 times worse. You can make the situation 10 times worse. I've had a situation, I don't want to go into detail, where someone had done something and I was shocked. I was more shocked the fact that this organization allowed this person to do this while they're really clearly living in a serious sin. But what did I do? I didn't necessarily confront her or anything. I gave it to God. And then God told me so. Anyway, that's a whole thing. But the whole point is that there's a time, don't get me wrong, yes. Okay, there's a time where we may need to judge, not necessarily judge someone, but we may need to rebuke somebody for doing something. But that doesn't mean it's every time. You need to actually use this discernment and actually use wisdom that God has given you to think, okay, let's just break this down before I run into the situation all guns blazing. Let me weigh out, okay, what the situation is, why I'm upset about this situation, or why this reason is wrong. Is it right for me to go confront this person now, or let it go and see if it happens again, or whatever? So it's really important to use discernment. And it's just, I just love this verse this morning, just really highlighted it, because we are a very judgmental set of people. Don't get me wrong, if you've never judged somebody, I'm sorry, but I'm not saying you're lying, but I think you have at some point. It may not be as obvious, or you may not have seen it as being judging someone, but we've all done it. Unfortunately, that's our fleshy nature. Our arrogancy can come out and that kind of thing. So we're all kind of, unfortunately, deposit. I can't even say the word, but we're all kind of wired to kind of, unfortunately, go in that direction. But it's important that we actually take the time to analyze a situation. Like a good example would be, if I did go with that person and I pointed this out, how upset I was, and explained that they shouldn't have done it, blah blah blah, then that tide could have been broken, where we weren't friends, or not necessarily friends, but we wouldn't be on speaking terms, and then I wouldn't be able to kind of shine God's light onto her, because I've done something now that's just kind of corrupted this relationship, the speaking term relationship. So that's why it's important to actually use discernment. It's really important to use discernment, because not every situation needs us to speak. I mean, if you look on social media, people are always constantly arguing and posting comments where people want to get their viewpoints across and that sort of thing, or they're aggro over something, and you think to yourself, why are you wasting your energy on that? You know what I mean? I think as humans, we just love to prove that we're right. And when someone is doing something wrong, we like to be like, you're doing something wrong straight away. And if we look into the New Testament, that's literally what the Pharisees were doing. That's literally what the Pharisees were doing constantly. They weren't necessarily offering kind of advice or offering that like pastoralship. It was just, you're doing this wrong. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. And that's not out of love whatsoever. That's out of just them being superior and knowing, actually, you're doing wrong. We're God's people, we're the high priest, we are this, anyway. So there's that such a threat stake. So the main point is, yes, there's times in our lives where we do really need to point out when someone is doing wrong. And I've done it where there's times where I've said, okay, you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't be doing that, or that's a bit mean, or this, that. There's times that I've had to say something, but there's times in situations where it's like, it's not for me to say, or it's not the right moment for me to say, or I feel that it's just, there's no point of me even saying anything. So there is situations where you need to kind of call out sometimes people's behaviours, and that sort of thing. But most of the time it's actually for us to kind of use that discernment. And sometimes some things we see some people say, it's not for us to kind of point that out to them, because sometimes it's like flogging a dead horse. Bring them up to God and give your frustrations to God. Give everything to God. Take that weight off our shoulders and give it to God, and pray for God that the situation changes, or whatever the situation may be. But for the most part, it's for us to be quiet and to think and to use discernment as to just running our mouths in every situation. And that's what causes people to look at us as Christians and think, I don't want to be a Christian because these people are mean, these people are awful, these people are this, that, this is very, very judgy, and this, that, and this, that, and this, that. And unfortunately, some of us are either just because they could generally be concerned about people, but at the end of the day, we can't comment on everything. We can't just comment on everything. For the most part, what God expects us to do is to show love and to show compassion. And when the time is right, where we need to kind of rebuke somebody, or we need to point out something that they're doing, then that time will come. God will let us know but there's times where it's not for us to say, and it's just keep quiet. Just keep quiet. But at the end of the day, the main point of this is to think before doing, to always think before doing. Think about the situation. Do I really need to do it? Or even say a small prayer before you do it. So, speak to God a little bit and say, okay, this is doing that. Do you want me to speak into it? Do you want me to speak about the situation to this person? Or yes or no, that sort of thing. But don't rush in guns blazing, because that is not wisdom. That is not wisdom.